The first time I saw my sister-in-law in handcuffs, she wasn't screaming. She was catatonic. She sat on the curb outside her mother's house, her hands zip-tied behind her back, staring blankly at the space where her swollen belly used to be. The flashing lights of the ambulance painted her pale face in rhythmic bursts of red and white, cutting through the early morning fog. My mother, usually the loudest woman in any room, was being shoved into the back of a police cruiser, shrieking about persecution and stolen miracles. My brother, Travis, just stood in the driveway, holding a stack of unpaid medical bills and a foreclosure notice, looking like a man who had finally woken up from a coma to find his house on fire. I stood on the porch, sipping a cup of coffee that was still hot, watching the empire of delusion they had built for 3 years finally crumble into dust. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt. I just felt the heavy relief of a survivor who had finally made it to the lifeboat. At that moment, watching the police secure the scene, I finally understood a hard truth. Some people don't need to be saved. They need to be stopped. To understand why I stood there drinking coffee while my family was dismantled by the authorities, you need to know what happened the last time I tried to save them. 6 months ago, I had tried to force reality on them. I had looked at my sister-in-law, Tiffany, and her dangerously distended stomach, and I chose confrontation. She claimed she had been pregnant for 15 months. Any rational person knows that isn't a gestation period, it's a medical crisis. In that attempt, I dragged Tiffany to the car, demanding she see a doctor. I tried to force the truth. And for my trouble, my mother attacked me. She shoved me down the front porch steps in a fit of hysterical rage, screaming that I was trying to kill the miracle. I woke up in the air with a concussion and a fractured wrist. My family didn't visit. They blocked my number and threatened a restraining order. That was the day I learned the hard way. If I became the threat to their delusion, they would destroy me before I could help anyone. So, when they finally let me back in a month later, I didn't argue. I realized that logic was the enemy here. If I challenged her, I was a demon. If I validated her, I was an ally. And allies survive long enough to make the call that matters. I changed my strategy entirely. I became the good aunt. I took Tiffany to the mall. Instead of lecturing her about her sallow, gray skin or her sunken eyes, I handed her my credit card. She bought 3 strollers. She bought a crib that cost more than my mortgage payment. She bought designer onesies, even though a 15-month pregnancy is biological fiction. Why is this pink? Tiffany snapped, holding up a blanket. I told you, the spirit told Mom it's a boy. A strong, husky boy. My mistake, I said smoothly. Get the blue one. Get 2, he'll need them. I realized something profound during that shopping trip. As long as I said yes, she was docile. As long as I validated the lie, I was safe. I wasn't just buying baby clothes, I was buying time. When we returned to my mother's house, the atmosphere was suffocating. My mother, Patricia, had turned the living room into a shrine with candles burning dangerously close to the curtains. The air smelled of sage and desperation. Chloe, Mom shouted, inspecting the bags. Did you finally get it? Is the nursery ready? It's getting there, I lied. Tiffany picked out some beautiful things. Good, Mom hissed, her eyes wide. Because your negativity was poisoning the womb. That's why he hasn't come out yet. But now he knows we're ready. I sat down for dinner, and that's when the gravity of the medical situation truly hit me. Tiffany's appetite wasn't just large, it was alarming. She ate voraciously, consuming thousands of calories in one sitting, yet her limbs were thin and brittle. The mass in her abdomen was acting like a parasite, diverting every nutrient she consumed. I watched her wander into the backyard later that afternoon and eat dirt from the potted plants. It was a classic sign of pico condition where the body, starved of minerals, compels a person to eat soil. My mother didn't stop her. She clapped her hands and called it grounding the baby to the earth. I knew right then that Tiffany was in severe physical decline, but I kept my mouth shut. I just smiled and nodded, knowing that speaking up would only get me thrown out again. Instead, I focused on the one thing I could salvage, the house. Travis, my brother, was a ghost in his own home. He was staring at foreclosure warnings, paralyzed by my mother's dominance. Travis, I pulled him aside one evening. You haven't paid the mortgage in 6 months. You're going to lose the house. It's temporary, he mumbled. Once the baby comes, the blessings will follow. The bank doesn't care about blessings, I said quietly. Transfer the deed to me. I'll pay off the arrears and handle the payments. You and Tiffany can live here rent-free until the baby arrives. But I need to own the asset to save it. I didn't trick him. I had a lawyer draft the papers and I insisted Travis take a day to review them independently. He signed them 3 days later because he was drowning and I was the only lifeline. I wasn't stealing their home. I was ensuring that when this house of cards collapsed, my mother wouldn't be able to burn the roof over their heads. The turning point came on a Tuesday in November. I was helping fold the mountain of baby clothes when Tiffany gasped. She was sitting on the sofa, breathing heavily, the sound wet and labored. "Mom," she wheezed, clutching her stomach. "It hurts. It's not the good hurt. It's labor," Mom screamed, dropping a tray of cookies. "It's finally happening. The miracle is coming." Tiffany collapsed sideways onto the couch. It wasn't the rhythmic contraction of birth, it was the sudden, sharp agony of a medical emergency. A stain began to spread across her sweatpants, severe, dark bleeding. "Get the towels," Mom yelled. "Home birth. No doctors. They'll try to steal him." My instinct screamed at me to rush to her, but I looked at my mother. She had grabbed a pair of kitchen scissors and was guarding the couch like a watchdog. If I touched Tiffany, my mother would attack me again. And if I was injured, I couldn't make the call. I stepped back toward the door. "I'll get the water," I said. I went into the hallway, out of sight, and dialed 911. "I need an ambulance immediately." I kept my voice low and steady. "My sister-in-law has collapsed. Severe bleeding. Distended abdomen. My mother is refusing medical entry and is unstable. You need to send police with the paramedics." "Is she pregnant?" the operator asked. "She believes she is," I said. "But it is a medical crisis." I didn't hide in the bathroom. I went straight to the front door, unlocked the deadbolt, and stood there holding it open. I needed to ensure that the second help arrived, they had immediate, unobstructed access to the patient. From the living room, Travis was finally waking up to the horror. "Mom, stop. She's bleeding. Look at the blood. It's the cleansing," Mom roared back, trying to push on Tiffany's stomach. "Don't you dare doubt God right now." When the paramedics burst in, followed by police, they walked into a chaotic scene. My mother tried to physically block the medics, raising the scissors, screaming about a home birth. That was when the police stepped in. They didn't negotiate. They tackled my mother and removed her from the patient. She screamed that I was a traitor, that I had summoned demons. "She is a danger to the patient," I told the officer calmly. "Please remove her." They dragged her out. They loaded Tiffany onto a stretcher. Her body was in visible distress, her skin gray and clammy. I followed the ambulance in my own car. I stopped for coffee on the way. I needed to be awake. I needed to be sharp for what came next. At the hospital, the surgery took 6 hours. When the surgeon finally came out, he didn't look like a man who had delivered a baby. He looked furious. He walked up to Travis and took off his cap. "Who is responsible for this?" "I am," Travis whispered. "I'm the husband." "This was preventable," the surgeon said, his voice stern and shaking with suppressed anger. "And it went on far too long. We removed a 40-pound teratoma. It had compromised her intestines and her kidney. It wasn't a baby. It was a parasitic mass that has been growing unchecked for nearly 2 years. She is in septic shock. If she survives the night, it will be a marvel." Travis stared at him, broken. "But the king?" "There is no baby," the surgeon said, finality in his voice. "There never was." The fallout was swift. Because I had installed cameras to record the miracle, the police had everything they needed. They saw the neglect, the refusal of medical care, and the aggression. My mother was charged and sent to a psychiatric facility, unfit to stand trial. Travis wasn't charged, but he was left a shell of a man, living in the guest room of the house I now owned. Tiffany survived, barely. She was transferred to long-term psychiatric care. She still believes the doctors stole her son. When I visited her, she thanked me for the stroller. She told me I was a good aunt. I accepted the thanks. I walked out of the facility, got into my car, and took a sip of my coffee. Some might say I was cold for waiting. Some might say I should have fought harder. But those people haven't been pushed down the stairs by the people they tried to save. I realized then that I didn't fail my family. I did the only thing that actually worked. Survival isn't cruelty, it's boundaries.